Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golf Course Lawn Show. My name is Ron Henry, and I'm here to help answer your lawn care questions. Tonight's a special night in that we have a special guest is going to be here to also take some of your questions. We have a golf course superintendent, Devin Mergl from the Club at Flying Horse. I'm going to introduce him here in a second. So definitely for any of you cool season folks that feel like you don't get a whole lot of loves, tonight is your night, right? So we've been he's been doing some testing with plant growth regulator and doing some other things that'll be cool to share with you guys. So hopefully you get some value out of the show. The way this works is really simple. On your screen, depending on the platform you're on, you're going to see a chat box. And in that chat box, you can enter your question, concern, comment of the day, and I work through them in the order they come in. Now, as always, sometimes I have the answer, sometimes I do not. But either way, we have an awesome time talking about lawn care and sometimes life. So again, tonight, special night. We got your questions queued up. We got some video and some cool stuff to show from other folks. But again, if any of you guys have questions about plant growth regulator in particular, and also cool season turf, tonight is the night to do that. So let me get over here really quick and bring Devin in. Hey, Devin, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So again, guys, Devin is golf course superintendent at a club out of Colorado Springs, I think. Yep. Out of Colorado, the Club at Flying Horse. So his entire job is to make turf grass look spectacular. I just play a turf grass guy on YouTube. This guy actually does it for a living, right? So there is that. So yeah, Devin. So I know this year, it's been a with you being where you are, it's you tend to be a little bit further behind than we are as far as getting everything going. One of the things that I know you've been doing a lot of testing with here is on PGR. So maybe a little later in the show, you can talk about like some of the stuff you've been playing with, and some of the folks can get maybe learn something as far as new options they can go with.
Sure, yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, so let's jump into it really quickly. Let's let the everyone get in, take their seats. So we'll take a few questions first. The first one is from Mr. Gene DeWolf. He says, Celsius uncertainty. I don't want to mix small amounts and have to discard residual each time I spot spray. If I mix 4-gallon batch, will it remain effective through October? So I've never done that, Gene. In general, when it comes to herbicides, I tend to mix what I'm going to use. That's what I tell to recommend to folks for a couple of reasons. One, it tends to be more effective for safety reasons. If it stays in the garage, someone doesn't get into it. So for that reason, I just really would kind of push you towards mixing what you intend to use. You don't have to mix 4 gallons of it. Like if you use Celsius on, you can mix like take 2 gallons at a time. And I think that would be a way to go versus, have it sticking around. That's a good question. So Devin, for you guys, I mean, I know on the golf courses, you guys probably, I know herbicide use or post-emergent herbicide, probably not something you guys do a ton of, but how do you guys handle that? Do you mix up a batch at the beginning of the season? You kind of just hang on to it all year, or do you mix it as you need it? Or how do you guys approach that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So whenever we're doing any kind of applications, everything is mixed the day of and used the day of. So if like we're doing a green spray, it takes 450 gallons to spray all our greens. So we have a big nurse tank. So I'll mix up 450 gallons with all our product, and we'll do 350-gallon tanks with our sprayer, and then that's all that. And then my assistant, like if we're doing a rough spray or a fairway spray, surround spray, he will mix individual 300-gallon tanks in the field, and it usually takes 8 or 9, depending if you're doing fairway or rough sprays for that. And he'll just mix one tank at a time and spray all that. So whatever we mix is used. We never leave anything sitting, because, like I said, at the end of the day, too, the sprayers get cleaned out really good, because you don't want any residue sitting in your lines that can cause like corrosion or stuff. Because there's some stuff. Some certain chemicals, the labels say that whatever's mixed needs to be used, or it needs to be in continuing agitation to keep it
Mm-hmm.
suspended. But yeah, you can run into problems with your sprayer parts if product is sitting in it for too long, and the product can settle, and then you can have problems with that too.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go, Gene. So for a lot of reasons, just I recommend not doing it. I didn't even get into what he was saying. The point he brought up about your spray equipment getting damaged. You can get deposits forming and this type of thing. So there's a ton of reasons to not do it. The only reason I guess you kind of say to do is it saves you from having to mix it. But I would just mix what you intend to use that. I don't personally have any experience with it because I don't do that. I mix what I intend to use that day. I use it, and then that's it. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps her. Obviously your call, but I'd say don't get in the habit of leaving stuff in the sprayer. I mean, I know people that have done that and they've got damaged. Like actually a good friend of mine. Tell you story time. He used he had like a brush remover, so like glyphosate and there's another herbicide that's in it, and it's like resident for like 18 months. Starts with an I. I forget the name of it. Isoxaben, maybe. Um, but he was spraying plant growth regularly. He wanted to try it this year, and I said, "Listen, make sure obviously your equipment's clean." He didn't do a great job cleaning it out, so his first pass he made like in the front lawn, and right in the front lawn there's a path of like you can see exactly what happened, like a path of like dead Bermuda grass. So that's another reason to not leave stuff in your sprayer. You just don't you prevent the chance of having injury. So in general, not a hard no, but a hard no. That's what I would say. All right. Next up, we got Jay Riviera. He says, good evening, Ron. I hope all is well. Jay here from Milford, New Jersey. I just emailed you images of my lawn. Desperately need your expertise on how to fix the current state of the lawn. So many brown patches. I can't explain. Details of what I've done are on the email. So I may or may not. Yeah, so I can't watch the video now, Jay, because you literally emailed this like just now, and I'm in the middle of the show. So what I can do is, if you've got pictures, you do have a couple of pictures, and I can bring those up, but I can't actually look at the video because this is kind of done live. So sorry about that. So looking at your lawn, these. Let me get all 3 of these. And guys, in general, if you want to get your pictures on the show, we'll do this time. It works a lot better if you get the pictures to me before the show starts, because that way they can be formatted properly. But this is what he's dealing with in his lawn. Picture uno. I don't know, man. It looks like dollar spotty. That's kind of gotten out of control, perhaps. I don't. Yeah. So go ahead.
You know what grass type?
He says he's in New Jersey, cool season ryegrass lawn.
Oh, okay.
And there's another shot here, a little close up.
Yeah, that looks like dollar spot. I'd be
Yeah.
curious if there was like something in the foreground kind of to show like the size of that if you had like something in there
Yeah, let
for
me see
comparison.
if there's anything closer, any more close-up shot. I mean, so yeah, so this is another picture, bit of more a close-up shot. You can kind of guess you can use the weeds for
With
reference.
the
It's
pin
not.
flag, yeah.
It looks like
Yeah,
dollar spot to me.
I'd guess dollar spot, which
Mm,
I'd be curious if you've applied any nitrogen so far this year, because I know dollar spot is a disease that will get going when the turf grass is wanting a little bit of nitrogen. And most of the time, you can just apply some nitrogen, and then your turf will grow out of that. It
Mm-hmm.
just affects the blades. It's not like a crown or root affecting disease. So most of the time, you don't need to spray for that, but you can apply like a small amount of nitrogen or whatever your nitrogen dosage would be that you like to use, and it would usually grow out of that. Especially if
Yeah.
it's like a fast acting nitrogen.
Yeah, we got another one here. He's thinking brown patch. I mean, I can kind of see a bit of a ring in that one, but this looks more like dollar spot to me, man. This doesn't look
Hmm. And
like.
sometimes with dollar spot where it gets big like that, those small dollar spot circles will coalesce and make bigger circles as they get worse.
Yeah, so Jay, I kind of what Devin is saying. You know, on Bermuda lawns, we dollar spot and large patch are probably the two common diseases that we'll get, other than spring dead spot. And dollar spot, to his point, even if you see it in your lawn, it doesn't typically turn into anything if the lawn is getting enough nitrogen. So if you've not been fertilizing, you could do that. Um, I mean, I guess in more
J-
extreme cases, propiconazole if you
Yeah,
had to,
exactly.
but
Or azoxystrobin. Jay, what I would do is go out really early in the morning and see if you have mycelium on your yard growing. It'll look like little spider webs with the dew on it. And if you have that, I'm pretty certain it would probably be dollar spot.
yeah. So hopefully that gives you some ideas there, Jay, to go look at. You know, worst case, look into like propiconazole or something like that. But I mean that again, if you haven't been feeding the lawn, I would try that first before you go out and throw fungicides at it. So hope that helps. All right. Next up is Michael Thomas, and he says, "Evening, Ron. Toma 31 down in 1 week. They will remove the old Bermuda and level. I plan on rolling the area before it's laid. What, if anything, do I need to put down before the sod goes in?" I can tell you what I did. I did a fertilizer. So I did a 14 something with a bit of potassium, a bit of phosphorus in it. I also did fungicide. Mainly because with zoysia, you're watering it so much, and if you happen to get disease in zoysia, heaven help you, because it's going to take forever for it to recover from it. So as inexpensive insurance, also given the time of year that I was doing it, I thought like a fungicide app was relatively cheap insurance, which is why I did it. Not strictly necessary, but it's something that I did. You might want to consider as well. It's the only thing I tell you.
Yep. I,
Uh,
I would say too, any like soil products that you want to use, that's a great time. Even if it's a spray, you can spray it right onto the soil, because then you're just bypassing it, having to go through the turf and the thatch, and then it's already there. And as soon as everything starts rooting, everything's already available.
Nice. Yep. Yep. So biostimulants, fertilizer, anything soil based. Yep. If you haven't done, well, it's kind of late in the season now, but if we could fast go back to like say April and you were doing like an insecticide app, great time to do that as well too.
Mhm.
And so you don't have to go past the sod to get to it. But fungicide is the one thing I'd say, given the amount of water you're going to be putting on the lawn, that would be relatively cheap insurance. Bermuda's not too bad about it. Zoysia, I'm more concerned with, because Bermuda, it's not as disease prone, and um, if you do have any damage, Bermuda will just grow through it a lot faster than Zoysia. So there's that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Next up, we got Jay Rose. He says, "Good evening, Ron. I have missed a couple of these. I'll be listening as I am working mower deck. It says repaint and maybe a spindle replacement. Sounds like they're bad, and now they seem fine. Okay. I don't have a ton of weeds, but I still have to ask. Okay, question. I have concerns about the different weeds that are dormant when I kill off my lawn and lay sod. What would you say? Can't use pre-emergent for a certain amount of time with new sod. Yes. Okay. So I guess your question is, if there's weed seeds or that are dormant in the lawn that have not yet germinated, when you kill off the sod, how do you address them? I don't really do anything about. I just, if they grow through, then I deal with it after the fact.
Yeah.
You know. So
Yeah. Chances are good if you're laying sod on any of that, it'll kind of smother it, and not a great chance that it would be able to grow.
yeah, you're not gonna get a ton of breakthrough. Like what's funny is my front lawn was been Bermuda. I did exactly what you're talking about, Jay. And I've had a little bit of Bermuda breakthrough. I did that combination recognition and fusillade one time. And now the follow-up, I've got like a couple of Bermuda sprigs here and there that are coming through. So it's not, and Bermuda is quite aggressive. So I'm getting less of it than I expected to get given the history of the lawn. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you tend to have clumps of weeds here and there and you can't just pull them, you may spot spray that once the lawn gets more established, but I wouldn't, there's nothing that I do in particular to help prevent, potentially dormant weeds from growing in as you go through the renovation. So hope that helps, sir. Okay, next up we have Claude Thompson. Okay, we're getting into the growth regulator stuff. He says, hey, Ron, Claude here in Connecticut. Would you make any adjustments to the following in a 4-gallon spray tank? Release 0, 8 ounces, the kelp 8 ounces, micros blends 32 ounces, 4 gallons. That's 8 per. That's a bit heavy for that. A new EZ 2 ounces, Primo Max 1.5 ounces. So what does that work out? So 0.75. That's it's kind of high, Claude. I think you have fescue. You have a cool season lawn, but if you're spraying once per month, I guess that's okay. The rates for the micros is heavier than I would recommend. I would do 6 ounces per 1,000, which gets you closer to 24 ounces. What do you think, Devin? I mean, as far as, he's doing like 0.75 per 1,000 of Primo. I think there are points on the label that call for that, but that seems a bit heavy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd have to look at and see what the exact rate is for Primo Max. Let's see, but that does seem high. Like I know for bluegrass, it's pretty high. I want to say it's like you can go up to 0.6, which I was doing last year before I started doing a combo this year. For fescue, I'm not sure off the top of my head, and the micros does seem high to myself.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in other words, are you going to damage the lawn? No. But I mean, here's the thing. I sell the stuff and I'm telling you to use less of it. So like, it's my best interest for you to use as much of it as you can, but I'm telling you, like what you're about to do as far as the amount of micros, I don't use that much on my lawn. So I personally would back it down. You get more applications. I just don't think there's any reason to go that heavy. Let me pull up the label here really quick. All right. So if we look at the label for Primo, yeah, so there are some, so 0.75 for fescue. Yeah, 0.75. There you go, right there. While you can do that, Claude, this assumes you're going to be spraying once per month. I'm a fan of spraying at lower rates every couple of weeks, so it's really your call. I'd probably cut it in half and spray, half of this every 2 weeks for me, but it's really, really up to you which way you want to go. It's per the label. That's what you should be doing. So there you go. There you go. Let me add them back in. So hope that helps, sir. If anything, back down the micros a little bit. If you're spraying Primo once per month, your rates are good per the label. A new EZ, half an ounce, that's fine also too, if you're doing it once per month per the label. But again, if it were me, I would reduce the rate on Primo in half and spray every 2 weeks instead of once per month.
Yep.
You also, if this is the first time you're spraying it, given that we're later in the season, you cut it by 3, right?
I would cut it by 3 if that's the first rate, just so you don't sting it. But I was going to say, if you've already done it at that 0.75 and you're not seeing any problems and you're only doing it once a month, I would keep doing it, because it's kind of similar to like when we spray like our rough and fairways. We go at 0.6, but that's because the golf calendar and golf events dictate that we can only spray fairways and rough once a month.
Right.
For that. But if I had the ability to spray fairways and rough more than once a month, I would split it. So if you can do splits, I would do that. But if you're happy doing it the one and you're not seeing any ill effects or anything, we're probably safe to keep doing that then.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if this is the first time, probably not a great idea. If you've been doing it, then continue on if that's what's been working well for you, without any discoloration, any bronzing or whatnot. So cool. Hope that helps. Claude, so that's a good question. So as far as a growth regulator, Devin, so I know you've been doing some work on your lawn this year. You've been doing some testing. So guys, one thing that's been happening in here, at least in the Southeast, we've been getting tons of rain. Yesterday was the last day, at least if the forecast is to be believed, for the next 10 days, we're supposed to have any kind of rainfall, and it's supposed to get hot. So, if you're on the fence about start trying growth regulator to slow down the rate of growth in your lawn. In my opinion, you really would have wanted to start several months ago, but unless you're going to mow a lot, you're going to want to use something to slow down how quickly the lawn is growing in. But what's interesting is Devin did some testing, and one of the benefits I always tell you guys is seed head prevention, right? So one of the benefits you get, or you see it on the labels of pretty much all plant growth regulators, is that if you use this, it's going to help suppress seed heads in your lawn. So he has some pictures here, and you could probably narrate and walk us through it. Let me get the first one. First one's up here.
So
Let me get to the one that
yep,
actually
that
had
was
it.
top dressing. Yep, there you go. So in between those white hashes was a strip that has received no PGR for the entire year. So each time a PGR app was made, this section was skipped. And I think I was telling you before, let me look at here. So my PGR started on March 11th, and I'm doing Primo and Cutlass. According to the Cutlass label, it's a Class B, so you use the rate it says for that, and then you cut your Class A, which is my Primo, by a half rate. So to start the year, on March 11th, I did Primo at 0.075 ounces per thousand and Cutlass at 0.135 ounces per thousand. Sprayed that. Following week, did another app of that, because if you combine those, that'd be enough for one full app. So I kind of just really wanted to gradually bring the turf and get it used to it. So half rate, went a week. Then that following week, which would be the next 2 weeks, I went to the full rates, and we were at 0.27 ounces per thousand of Cutlass and 0.15 ounces per thousand of Primo. And I've been doing that full rate like that since May 2nd, every other week. So yeah, in between these white test plots, this little area has received 0 PGR, and I've been doing grass stuff for a long time, and it's actually really impressive to actually see this actually work like the label says it does. You can see a pretty clear
heads, right?
line. Yeah, so like in there, it's just leveled with seed heads. Like the whole area is just packed with seed heads. And then if you look just to the outside of it, you can see a clear, definite line where it's just all just fine bladed bluegrass grown. Maybe a few seed heads here and there, but nothing near as what is in that test plot that hasn't received any PGR. So it is actually really cool to see that aside from it causing the grass to want to grow more laterally versus vertically, you do get a seed head suppression on it, which just gives you a better turf quality. It's easier on your mower leads. From a golf course standard, playability, no one wants to play on that. So just kind of a cool thing to test at home, but then also something that I can apply work-wise too.
Really cool. And yeah, it's definitely cut and dry. Like you can see
Yeah.
very clearly how that area is just filled with seed heads, and everything else around it is relatively clean. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
Some of your cultural practices, we see you did a core aerate.
Yep. So that would have been, when did I do that, guy? So core aeration was on March 26th. So aerated, verticut 2 direction, top dressed, overseeded, put gypsum down for some calcium, some soil conditioners, some liquid wetting agents. And that was to kind of kick the year off. So that was kind of the first thing. And then just a few weeks later, we were greened up and mowing. So yeah, and then that was just last weekend, or a couple weekends ago, I think, when I had sent you that picture. So that's the front now.
Nice.
And then that was my first mow. So that would have been 2.5 weeks after all my top dressing. And this would have been before really any big sprays. And then that would have been before the first mow, as stuff is starting to grow up through all the top dressing. And then that was the backyard just a couple weeks ago.
Very nice. So it's funny. So as far as like for you, like, so one of the questions I often get is like, so verticutting, core aeration, it's a lot of extra work. Why can't I just mow? Like, what are the benefits you think, in your opinion, that people are missing out on potentially if they omit like, a turf rake or verticut or something to help thin out the canopy throughout the season?
Oh yeah, it's hugely beneficial. You're pulling all that dead organic material out. And usually there's so much of it that it's not going to break down and it's not really usable by the plant. So it's good to just mechanically remove that, and then you can get all your nutrients, air, water, um, your drainage is better, and everything just kind of gets down into that root zone a lot better. And it's just a good way to start the year, and it's a good way to end the year too, because I'll do that again in the fall.
Yeah. It's funny. Something that I've noticed since I started, and it's been a few years now, since I started regularly turf raking and verticutting the lawn, the amount of disease that I've dealt with in the lawn has been also less. And I attribute that, I guess, to there's less, there's just less dead material,
Yeah.
like the mushrooms, and just dead organic material just sitting around for it to become a problem. But it's,
Yeah, disease loves that thatch and that
hmm
organic matter. A lot of the time, that's where will originate, and where it'll start growing and spreading, and then it'll move out into your good turf. So yeah, if you just kind of remove its home, and then it gives you a better chance at not having to even deal with it, and then just you can, instead of having to go to curative rates or anything, you can just do preventative through the season, and then you're good.
yep, yep. Nice. Very cool, man. Okay, so True Gator fan has a question about Celsius. He says, so this for the single-use packets. I don't have one here in front of me, but the question he's asking is what rate or how much water to use with that. So if you do it for spot spraying, there's two different ways. You can do one packet in 2 gallons of water. That's the high rate, or you can do one of the small packets, 0.226 ounces, in 4 gallons of water. That's the lower rate. I tend to go with the higher rate, the 0.226 in 2 gallons. Works well for me, but I mean, you can go anywhere between 2 to 4 gallons with that single-use packet, and you'll get a good result. As always, use surfactant with it for best results, and you'll be on your way. And your question is, when will seed heads go away? Uh, they should be kind of tapering off by now. I mean, at least for me, again, I use a growth regulator, so I don't have as big a problem as a lot of folks. But even like my neighbors that aren't doing that, like their lawns for the most part are fairly it's just weeds now. Their lawns are fairly clean of seed heads. So if you're still dealing with that, if you're feeding the lawn, it's getting enough water, you're mowing it regularly enough. I'm trying to understand why you still be dealing with seed heads. We're in the third week of June at this point, you know. But yeah, for me and for most lawns, at least here in Northeast Georgia, it's a three-ish week problem.
Yeah.
Even for people that aren't doing anything, they stick around for about 3 weeks. So if you are still having that issue, I'll tell you, I had actually was an Academy member. He had seed heads all the way into like late July, and I said, well, man, listen, if you're watering enough, you're mowing enough, and the lawn's getting enough nutrients, meaning it's not really stressed, you really shouldn't be seeing seed heads. Oh, well, I'm not really sure what it could be. And I said, listen, just humor me, do a soil test. So he does one in late July, and like all his macro levels are all low. So that can be part of what you might be dealing with too. I mean, talking to you, or I think you're regular on the live stream side, I wouldn't think that you'd have a nutrient deficiency. But that'd be the next thing I might look at. If you've not done a soil test this year, if you haven't been fertilizing the lawn regularly this year, you might look into that, because it really shouldn't be sticking around this late in the season. Not for warm
Yeah.
season lawns anyway. Okay, so Jay says, let me know if I can send a video so I can have a better idea of the scope of the damage. I did get the video, but I will have to look at it after the show. I mean, I have the video here, but I can't actually listen. Actually, you know what? We might be able to get that. You know what? I'm going to tempt the demo gods by doing this, but we'll try it, because you can actually see it's a picture of his foot, so you can actually see the size of the spots, which is kind of useful.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm gonna.
I'd say dollar spot, I think.
Yeah.
And I
This is
think they're
just.
just coalescing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It looks like I'd say dollar spot damage, Jay, and you got more of it there. Yeah. That's what I would lean towards. It does not look like large patch or brown patch to me. I would say dollar spot. I agree. Okay, cool. Robert Rainey's entered the chat. He says, good evening, Ron and Devin. What's going on, man? Hopefully you're doing all right.
What's up, Robert?
Yeah, man. He says, good evening, evening, Ron. Hope all is well. I've sent you an email of my yard after I applied the warm season herbicide kit and liquid micronutrients. I've been mowing more frequently. I don't have any pictures from you, Helioc. I got pictures from everyone else, but I don't have anything from you. So if you sent them, if you can send them again, I can see if I can get them on the show, but I don't have anything from you right now. Okay. On the topic of like crazy good lawns, I'm gonna show you guys some pictures from, this one is from John B. John Budinger. He has, let me get the history of this. So he sent me some of this. So he has El Toro Zoysia before and after with a top dressing leveling project. So it's kind of a cool transformation. So this is lawn before, this is after scalping and verticutting. And I mean, it's not looking bad, but it's not, I mean, we can honestly say we've seen better, right? So this is where he starts. And then he brings in the material. He said this is like a blend of compost and sand. I'm going to say it's probably 50-50 because that's pretty dark
Nice.
to
That
be
looks
just sand,
nice.
right? And then core aeration, as you should, and then followed up by his top dressing, nice and light, which I like to see. You can see plenty of grass there. Yep, also looking good. This is 10 days after he finished his top dressing, lawn leveling, looking nice. And then this is 3 weeks afterwards. So
That looks
pretty big
nice.
difference, man. Pretty big improvement. So from that to that after top dressing, quite nice. Nice work. Nice work, John. Keep it going. Yeah. Really cool. All right. Next up we have Dragon Storm Gaming says, finally glad to be able to make one of these live. Hey everyone, what's going on, Dragon Storm Gaming? You have Traxxas, huh? You know, RC cars, RC trucks. That's kind of cool. Jackie Bear says, happy stream, everyone. And then Tom Hoffenkamp's up next. He says, happy Friday, turf fans. May your lawns be filled with sunshine and pleasant breezes this weekend. All I have is a list of mowing to do. He says, tons of mowing. He says, thank goodness Demir is here. You know what? I mean, that's nice, Tom. I feel it's a little bit hurtful, but it's okay. Hopefully you have some questions for him. You know, so a little bit of background, Devin. Tom he's got a Bermuda lawn, but it masquerades as a ryegrass lawn over the winter and early spring. So he did a ryegrass overseed. And yeah. Okay, so question, he says, good evening, Ron and all. I have a fescue lawn and have a host of weeds popping up now. Is there a general post-emergent weed killer I can use?
There is, but you're probably a little late now. You're probably gonna, I'm thinking of pre-emergent. No, yes, you can use 2,4-D. A 2,4-D would probably be your best bet. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of a pre-emergent for a second. So yeah, 2,4-D, anything with a 2,4-D in the active ingredient is what you'll want to do, and then just make sure you follow the label for your turf type and how much you need to apply per gallon per 1,000.
Yeah, Mr. Hayes, I'll text you one here. So this is a three-way we have. It's got 2,4-D in it, and you can use that on fescue. I think the rate is like 1.5 ounces per 1,000, but check 1.5 ounces mixed with a gallon of water over 1,000 square feet. Obviously, check the rate, but check that would be a good general purpose herbicide that's going to do a pretty good job. I mean, it's not an expensive product either. So
yep, and usually works pretty good.
Just be careful with temperature. If you get past 85 degrees, it's probably not going to kill it, but you can get some discoloration. So just got to be careful. You don't want to spray on when it's going to be too hot out.
Yep.
All right. Next up, Adam Stark says, hey, Ron and Devin, I forgot Devin was on tonight. Don't worry about the picks. If you don't have time, also hit the like button. Also, my daughter says she loves your music. She said it's relaxing. Awesome. Well,
Nice.
with a thing like that, I can't not show your pictures now, Adam. So Adam is, he sends pictures in. He's like, you can just hear him writing the email. He's like, listen, I'm sending pictures of my humble lawn. I've worked on it. I know it's not the greatest lawn ever, but I'm quite proud of it. If you can find a way in your heart to show, the folks of YouTube, the fruits of my labor, would really appreciate it. Something like that. And I think the lawn looks, you really undersold it. That looks
nice.
Most people would really like that, man. I don't know. I'm not sure what you're talking about on that. That's looking solid. Stripe action is on point. We got one more here. Solid, man. Looks like you top dress. I see some sand in the background there, possibly, that's still growing through. But overall, Adam, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. I'd be very proud of that. Yeah. Looks really good. Really good. And then the thing now, Adam, I'm not sure where in the country you are, but given the temperatures we're about to get now without like all the overcast weather, like Bermuda's really going to light off and start looking really nice. This June has been weird in that due to all the rain, it's been somewhat cooler than normal. So, you might be surprised that between now and 4th of July, your lawn, in my opinion, is when it's really going to peak, because it's just that the temperature has been weird this late spring, early summer. So Cool. And thanks for telling our thanks. I'm glad that she likes the music. I spent a lot of time picking it out, so that's cool. Lewis P86 says early pre-emergent question. I guess you have it further down there because I don't see anything. All right. So next up, we got Cedric G. He says, Big Ron, when is the next field trip? Are you doing the Real Rollers meet and greet this year? Turfs up, Furt down, stripe action forever. Yeah. So I'm not sure if Real Rollers. I know there was plans for them to do the turf meet and greet in the spring, but they got really busy. So I'm not sure what the plans are with that. If they are doing one, obviously I'll come by, and then yeah, that's the big thing. I'm not. From last I heard, there's not one on the calendar, but that may have changed. And Lee maybe hasn't said anything to me or anything. But as far as I know, it's been postponed for the time being because they just got really crazy busy this year with the new mower and inventory and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. Next up is Heli OC says, do you think I will be able to apply Miramichi pest control and Headway G on the same day? Thank you, sir. Yeah, no problem with that. No issue. I mean, the order I would do them in is the granular first, and then the liquid. As a general rule, like if you guys just want something you could just kind of clip and just use this as general guidance, unless the label says something different, you pretty much, if you're spraying a liquid product and you have to apply a granular product, you pretty much always want to do the granular first before the liquid. The only exception to that I can think of is there's a product from Spectracide, which is a granular post-emergent herbicide, and they literally say you want the leaf to be wet so it can stick to it, which for pretty much anything else you apply that's a granular, you really don't want that happening. So that's a edge case, but for the most part, it's always granular and then liquids afterwards. So, but yes, you can do that, no problem. Let's see here. Colin's up next. He says, what's up, Ron and Devin? Hope you guys Friday has been well tuned in for some great turf talk. Nice. You know, Devin, so some of the questions that folks get is on, or some emails I've been getting is around a green at home, right? So if you were going to build, and I'm not sure if with your course, if you were there when the greens were being put in, but let's say you're wanting to establish a green at home, what are the benefits, or would you say the juice is worth the squeeze of going through the work of like putting in proper drainage, doing the rock bed, doing the sand, and then the grass obviously on top of it, versus if your current cultivar will just tolerate it, just mowing really short and using that area as a green? Like as far as doing one at home, what benefits do you think a person would realize if they spent the money and time to go and do it the right way?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, so I was not there. I was Flying Horse was already 10 years old by the time I got there, and we just hit our 20th anniversary this year, which was pretty nice. Cool. But I've seen a ton of pictures of construction when our course was being built. I would say if I was a homeowner, I would probably I would mow down to what my turf would tolerate, because then chances are good after a while you would realize you probably don't want to do that and let it grow back up, and you wouldn't have spent all the time adding in your different layers for your USGA spec green and drainage everything. Because when you get out there and you got to mow a lot, and then the cultural practices are a lot different. Cultural disease, insects where you're at, just having to mow every day, how you water changes when you're that low. So I would say, as cool as it sounds, even myself, if I was to do it, I would just mow as low as my cultivar would allow it. And then, like I said, eventually you would probably get sick of it and would let that grow back up, would be my guess.
Yep. Yeah. So in general, I mean, in other words, what I told one guy, and I mean, he didn't get offended by it, but he was kind of like taken aback. I said, if you have to ask, it's probably not for you to do a green like the way a golf course would do it from scratch, because it's a big commitment to that. And again, like to your point, I mean, I enjoy working on lawns, I enjoy grass, I enjoy mowing, but it would quickly become not fun to have to do it every single day, and everything that goes along with it. You know, you gotta
you'd have to have the mower to do it, a mower that your height cut can be set, because we mow it. We're at 0.120 right now, and we'll notch that down as the season goes. So you're pretty low, and hot days, it's going to stress out quicker. There's just a lot. There's a lot more that goes into it than you would think.
Than just mowing it. So watering, mowing it, fungicide. You guys probably have to also, like, I mean, if it gets thicker, you have to top dress with sand, dilute the organic materials. There's just a lot of, Yeah. I mean, grass does not really want to do what we make it do on a green. So that's probably there's a lot you have to do to keep it healthy if you decide you want to go that route. So
Yep.
for most people, I just don't think it's worth it. But if you do, take pictures. It'd be cool. We want to see it. All right. Next up is Andre Taylor. He says, happy Friday, everyone. Based on the contents I've been watching, it seems as if maintaining cool season grass is a lot more work. Us warm season folks don't have to overseed all the time. That's a good point. So, cool season grass, it seems like overseeding every year is very much a thing. Would you say that, I guess, would you haven't worked on a warm season lawn, but I guess from watching the live stream and knowing what we do, would you agree with that cool season is more work, less work, same, different?
I'd say apples and oranges. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
depends. It kind of depends on what your yard's like. I mean, I've been in this house for almost 3 years. It will be 3 years in February, and I was at my old house for I think almost 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I only overseeded my old yard I think once because I finally decided I wanted to put ryegrass in it my last summer because then I was leaving and I just kind of wanted to see what it would look like because I just like having the stand of bluegrass. And the only reason I've overseeded here is because the variety we get is the sod we get for the golf course, but I also wanted to incorporate the 365 SS because I think that's a really good blend. So I've overseeded that, and that's just not for like getting thin or to recover for turf damage. That's just to incorporate those different varieties.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's about the same. I think probably a lot of it comes down to how well you maintain your yard and how it looks at the end of the year. And if you actually do need to do it, if you're doing the proper maintenance during the year, you probably don't need to. If you're watering, fertilizing, mowing correctly, you really shouldn't have any thinning out. If you're doing preventative disease sprays or granular apps, insecticides, depending on where you are. I know some parts of the country, even if you're cool season, you kind of have to deal with that, which it's funny. I just did the first insecticide app I've ever done on a cool season lawn this past week because I've been getting, which it's too late. I'm going to have to do an app. It's kind of just a curative right now. I'll have to do an app in the spring to catch the larvae, but I've been getting European crane flies coming up
Mm.
out of the yard. So I just noticed that. So I did an app of bifenthrin just to kind of catch any adults that are coming up to minimize, try to catch them and kill them. So then there's less chance of egg laying in the late fall. And then I'll probably do a granular insecticide app if they do lay any eggs, and I'll catch them in like at that early larva state because that's the best time to kill insects. But kind of the same thing. It all just depends on how well your cultural practices and your agronomic plan is, just keeping your yard maintained well and how well it's growing. So it's apples and oranges. It's kind of the same thing. So
Yeah,
kind of a long layman's answer there.
Yeah, no, I would say there's really not. I mean, there's obviously like a ton of difference. I mean, like for example, overseeding is a thing that's as far as like something you do in a cool season lawn that you don't really do in warm season lawns, turf grass. We don't use overseeding as a way to help thicken up the lawn and in general, we don't want to introduce other cultivars into like a Bermuda lawn or a zoysia lawn. So that's probably the big difference. But top dressing, that's still a thing. The fungicide
Yep.
program's a thing. So there's, I mean, yeah, I mean
Well, yeah,
it's
it's kind of like you guys scalp, and on cool
but
season lawns, no one scalps.
That's true. That's true. We do that. That's yeah. And I mean, for Bermuda and Zoysia, one of the best ways to start out the season if you can. So yeah. So they're just different. To your point, they're just either apples and oranges. Just very different as far as some things that you do on one but not the other. But in your opinion, overseeding every year strictly as a matter of like it's early spring time to overseed or it's fall time to overseed. Not strictly necessary if
Yeah,
you're caring for
not
the lawn
necessary.
properly.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. All right, so we got a question for you on gypsum. So Colin says, question for Devin in regards to gypsum. Do you notice a difference when you do and don't apply it on the course? Also, would you say that it improves compaction, drainage, and break up clay?
So that is a really fantastic question. So at my house here, and I'll pull up my app that I do. So when I do gypsum, let me pull it up here if I can find it. Um, So gypsum, I will do April and October, and that's timed when I do my aeration when I have holes open, and I do that at 10 pounds per thousand. So that's a pretty heavy rate. And then in July, kind of as a mid-season app, I'll do 4 pounds per thousand. Um, and it helps leach any sodium out of your turf profile, helps with compaction, helps with drainage, and this past 2 years we've done it. We have really clean water, well water at the golf course, and our soil test has come out, and we were recommended to do, and we've done it spring and fall for 2 years now. Gypsum applications at 500 pounds per acre, so 50 pallets will go out across the entire golf course, wall to wall. 50 pallets in the spring, 50 pallets in the fall, and those are 1,000-pound bags that we put into our spreader
Oh,
and
wow.
spread wall to wall. So, yeah, gypsum is it's a very good product. I think it's kind of one of those ones. I would say it's like kind of like with silica. A lot of people really don't think about, but it's really beneficial to use. And even if you really don't need it, it's just a good thing. It helps with soil structure, helps with compaction. If you don't need it for the sodium, it's just good for your soil. It's just a really good amendment as
Okay.
as a standalone. Like I said, I use it on my yard every year, timed with aeration and then a midsummer app.
Nice. So definitely there are benefits to it.
Yep.
And yeah, okay, cool. Very nice. Thanks so much for that. Great question. Great question, Colin. Next up is Gavin Moore. He says, "Hey Ron, took a week of vacation to Bermuda, added fungus protection, and still got dollar spot when I came back. Miss Green grew to Miss Gorilla with all the rain. She's back to Miss Green now. Um, a week of vacation should not result in you getting a bunch of dollar spot in the lawn. I wouldn't think, Gavin. Assuming that's what you really had. I mean, I guess if you get a chance, send me some pictures. I'll take a look at it and let you know what I think. But a week of you traveling shouldn't have really caused that. All right. Okay. Next up is Claude Thompson. He says, "Hey Ron and Devin, I've been spraying this every 2 weeks." Okay, so he's been playing 0.75 on the fescue. So that's heavy, Claude. That's double the rate. So
Double.
the rate on the label is that's a once per month rate. That's too much. Yeah.
I'd be curious how much clippings you're getting and what your
Yeah.
fescue looks like. I'd be kind of curious. That's actually kind of a cool study. You should, if you can, you should send Ron some photos. I'd actually be pretty curious to see that.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Claude actually did send me a picture, and he said, "Hey, I've had let me see if let me have the picture of it. I might be able to see here, but he had some discoloration, and he was trying to figure out how. And he says, any thoughts on why it might happen? And I said, well, I mean, the rates you gave me, or he didn't give me the rates for the growth regulator, but he said I'm spraying Primo, Annua. It listed the other products. And I do actually have pictures of his lawn, so I can actually show you that. 'Cause I saw some red, it looked almost like rust to me in it. And I said, man, I'm not sure what's going on, because like the micro shouldn't do that. The rates you're spraying for the liquid fertilizers, they look fine to me, but he didn't really give me rates for the growth regulator. And now this makes sense. Now that we revisit this, it actually makes sense now. Okay, so I can show you this. Okay, so these
Oh
are not.
yeah,
Yeah. So this is
you can see that.
picture.
Oh yeah, that's classic Fido burn there.
Yep. Yep. So now this makes a lot more sense as far as what's going on. So picture one, picture two. Yeah. So this one is not a great shot to be able to see, but the close up. Yeah, the close up. I thought I said, well, I mean, it looks. I mean, I've been watering heavily because it looks like rust. It looks like something going on. But yeah, you make a good point with the rates that he's spraying the growth regulator.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
tip
just
burn.
tip burn. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we got to the bottom of it. Claude. So it took a while because I'm looking at your email. You didn't actually give me the rates that you were using for growth regulator, but now this makes sense. Now this makes sense as far as what was happening in your lawn. So the rate you're using, if you're going to spray every 2 weeks,
Cut that in half.
cut that in half. At least in half,
And
because you're also
and
doing two growth regulators too. So you're stacking them. So you can half is the max I would do. You could go half, maybe a little bit less than that on the Primo. On the Anew, you're already like the rate. The range for Anew is like zero point 0.4 up to 1.2 ounces. So even at half an ounce, you're on the lower end. But for Primo, we definitely need to cut that in half. Minimum. Yeah. Yeah. Because looking at this now, that makes sense as far as what's going on in your lawn. If I can find the right picture. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So there we go. So we got to the bottom of it. What's actually happening. So yeah, reduce the rate. That rate you gave is too much for every 2 weeks. All right. Cool. Next up is Lewis P86. He says, early pre-emergent question. Can you apply 4 gallons of spectacle flow to 3,000 square feet for extra coverage, or stick to the original rate? Thanks. No. Okay, so the question you're asking is, can you mix the amount of spectacle flow that would be correct for 4,000 square feet and spray over 3,000 square feet? I would not do that. So here's the thing we got to get into, Lewis. And again, I've tried on many live streams to try and explain this properly, but I obviously don't do a very good job of it. So if you look at the label for any products, fungicide, growth regulator, spectacle flow, the label is going to say X number or X amount of fluid ounces or dry ounces or whatever happens to be over 1,000 square feet. How much water you use as a carrier for that, I mean, that can be varied. That can be variable. But if you take, for example, the amount of spectacle flow that you would use for 3,000 square feet and put that in 4 gallons of water, that's absolutely fine. You're still applying it at a rate of 3,000 or whatever the rate is of per thousand is correct for 3,000 square feet. What I would not do is put the amount of spectacle in 4 gallons of water that's correct for 4,000 square feet and spray that over 3,000 square feet. That's overdoing it. So, Devin, maybe you can explain it better than me, because I mean, like the difference of, because the question I often get is, well, how much the product per gallon? I said, I mean, that's really not the right question to ask. It's the amount of product per 1,000 square feet. The amount of water you use with it, you can vary that.
yeah.
It doesn't really matter as much.
So yeah, that's actually a really good point. So the first thing I would do is probably calibrate your sprayer. So you need to figure out what 1,000 square feet. So fill your sprayer with water, measure out 1,000 square feet, time that, spray out your 1,000 square feet, time that. However long that takes, you'll know. Take that time and fill it up into a catch container, and then see whatever your output is, and then you'll kind of know, it takes me this long to cover 1,000 square feet, and I used X amount of water. Then you can kind of correlate that, so you kind of know your walking space. Like I know my yard is just shy of 1,500 feet, 1,500 square feet. So 1.5 gallons will do my front and back. I'll spray my front, which is about 500, and then I'll always check, and I'll be right at like 1 gallon. So I'm like, okay, my walking space was good. I'll go to the back, I'll walk, I'll get about halfway, and I'll see that I'm about at a 0.5 gallon. So I go, okay, my walking space is good. And you can kind of keep track of that as you're doing it, like just kind of eyeballing it or seeing as you're going to know if your pace is good. But like Ron's saying, you don't want to mix, like if you have it calibrated where 1 gallon covers 1,000 square feet, so your 4 gallons covers 4,000 square feet, and you spray that on 3,000, you're over applying. And there's a lot of things, if you read in the labels about like restrictions and a certain amount of like AI pounds of that product that you can use per year, because it'll have adverse effects in the soil or runoff for environmental factors. You really want to avoid that as much as you can. So it's really important. You got to calibrate your sprayer, know how fast you need to walk to cover that distance, whatever that may be in that time that you've tested. And then use that as your basis of, this X amount of gallons will cover my 1,000 square feet. And then you mix whatever your rate is in with that, if that makes sense. It like you said, Ron, it does kind of get complicated. But that's kind of like the easiest way to explain that. I would start with calibration though, to make sure. I'm pretty sure you have a video that probably explains it a lot easier than what I just said too, and shows
Yes.
it as you do it.
Yes, I do. Lewis, the way to think about it is this, right? Let's say with spectacle, the rate, let's say it's the rate for spectacle is like 2/10 of an ounce over 1,000 square feet. So 2/10, 0.20 ounces over 1,000 square feet. It doesn't matter if you mix that 2/10 of an ounce with 1 gallon of water or with 2 gallons of water or with 3 gallons of water, as long as that amount of AI in that amount of water is sprayed over 1,000 square feet. So if you decide you're going to do like the rate I like to do is I like to do I used to use a dilution rate of 1 gallon per thousand, but that's not
Yeah.
a hard fast rule. For like a pre-emergent, you could do 2 gallons per thousand if you wanted to, as long as you're putting the amount of the product that is correct for 1,000 square feet in whatever amount of water you decide to use to dilute it. So the dilution, the amount of water used to dilute doesn't. I mean, there's a certain guidelines you want to follow, but that's not as critical as the correct amount of product going over the right amount of square footage. Hopefully
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And well, this just kind of reminds me because then you want to go into a real deep dive. So, like I said, I did that insecticide for bifenthrin yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and in the label it says they want you to spray that product 5 gallons per thousand, 5 gallons of carrier per 1,000 square feet. Because if you're trying to get into the soil, they want you to have as much water going down to pull that product down in there. But then if you read through the label, it says for low volume sprayers, 2 gallons or less to
Mm-hmm.
apply, and then irrigate immediately after with, I think it was a 1/4 inch of irrigation or rain. So you can kind of get it like even if you're at a low volume, like 1 gallon. That's how my sprayer is calibrated. 1 gallon will cover 1,000 square feet. Then you just got to read the label because like if it's a pre-emergent or like insecticide, like what I did yesterday, sometimes there'll be certain stipulations in the label that'll say whatever your volume or carrier is, then you need to do this immediately because you don't have enough product or water to carry that down, and then you got to supplement that with your irrigation right after.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So kind
So
of
there
just
you go.
another kind of tangent on kind of the
Another
same
thing to
line.
think of. Yep, yep. So something else, Lewis. Like if I like in the past, whenever I have applied, say fungicide on a not neighbor, but like I had a friend that did not have irrigation, and he had a smaller lawn. I think it was like kind of like Devin said, like 1,500 square feet. So what I did is I mixed enough. I took my 4 gallon sprayer. I mixed enough of the fungicide of pillar that would be correct for one. So it'd be really an ounce and a half in 4 gallons of water, which is like highly diluted, and spray that over the entire 1,500 square feet. And that's fine because you had a lot more water, a lot more carrier. And because he doesn't have an irrigation, he doesn't have an easy way to water that in, that extra water, extra volume will help, wash it down into the soil. So you can play with the amount of water you're using depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So hopefully that helps. We've both tried to explain it like a couple different ways. Hopefully it helps. And if not, ask again and I'll try to explain it a different way. All right. Next up is Aaron S. He says, a quarter of my St. Augustine lawn is dirt due to shade. How do courses manage shade issues without removing trees? Could I switch to that area to crown or cobalt zoysia since they're visually similar? That's a good question. So parts of the course, I guess, so you have any big trees on the course. I'm sure if you guys do. How do you guys deal with shade from the trees causing the grass to thin out?
Yeah, luckily where I'm at, because we're a link style, we don't really have any trees, which is nice. But I know a lot of superintendents they'll do like sunshade analysis for like greens and stuff, and then they'll come back and they'll give recommendations on trees that need to be removed for turf to grow. And then usually you got to go to like your board or your GM and present that information. Say, oh, I know member so and so is really attached to that tree, but it's killing the green. Here's what we can
Mm-hmm.
do and why. And then I'd say probably 90% of the time, you'll give it one horizontal cut at the base, and that's your best bet.
Right. Yeah. So uh you can't not have sunlight, Aaron. So if you have to have the tree, you could try going to zoysia, but I mean zoysia is not, again, it's not a magic grass. It's not like, if you have an area that says St. Augustine, because St. Augustine is actually fairly shade tolerant too. It's often one of the nicknames like the shade grass of the South, right? So if it's not doing well at all, I mean zoysia, I mean, you may have better success with it. I wouldn't get your hopes up too high that you're going to have an amazing thick stand of zoysia grass in an area that St. Augustine is struggling really badly, if the reason why it's struggling is due to shade. So cut the tree back some maybe, or do something to get more sunlight on it. That's the way I would go more so before I change grasses. And as far as like cobalt zoysia being visually similar to St. Augustine, maybe by the thickness of the blade, but the way that it's going to grow is going to be different. They're not going to match, I guess, if that's what you're going for. So
Yep.
that's another consideration. I wouldn't mix two different grass types if it were me.
Yep. And
So.
this is kind of just like an interesting tangent. So for a lot of turfgrass species, especially for cool season, that first morning sun, whatever the rays and like the different light rays that are in that are really, really, really beneficial for turfgrass growth. And I've noticed that at my house because of the way my front sits, it gets full morning sun and my house blocks the entire backyard until early afternoon. And I am sold that is why the front yard always looks better than the backyard. Like it's always got a better, deeper green to it. It gets that morning sun, and then it flips, and then the front will get the shade from the intense afternoon heat, and then the back just gets pounded.
Interesting. Huh. That's and okay, so are there any other parts of the course or I guess what you see on your lawn, does your neighbor's lawn, do they behave similarly, or do you notice? I mean, I'm sure they take care of their lawns, or if you even pay attention to it.
It'd probably be tough to tell on theirs because they never they're not ferted or like mowed regularly enough that you would be able to tell. But I think in those pictures that I sent, you can kind of tell because those pictures I took are 10 seconds apart versus the front and the back, and you can tell the different. Like the front yard will have that, it's like a really lush emerald, and the spray program's the same. They get the same water, so I mean that looks good. But then when you look at the front, it's kind of, I always think it's more darker, vibrant.
Yes, I would agree with that. The back looks, I mean, it looks good, but this looks darker, deeper. Yes, in color. I would agree with that. Interesting. Yep. And you've got some others. Yeah. This it's a noticeable difference. Yeah, but that's not striped yet. And then Max. So, Yeah, I'd be interested to know that. I mean, my front. Let me think. My back lawn looks better. You say, funny you say that. My back lawn gets sunlight before the front lawn, and my back lawn always looks better than, like, consistently looks better than the front.
Yeah, that morning sun, whatever the I'd have to look at. I've got notes at my desk at work. Whatever those morning light rays, the grass just really, really loves that. And that's why a lot of the problems that you'll get on like putting greens that have a lot of big trees because they don't get that early morning sunlight.
Okay, nice, interesting. I would say the same thing. My back lawn looks better than my front, and they get the same amount of love, same amount of treatment, and it's noticeably different. So, interesting. Okay, so next up we have. I'm gonna mess this up. Nico Browley, I think. He says, "Hey Ron, happy Friday, Ron. Can you tell me anything about green sand? I just heard about it from a gardener for his soil. Do you think it can be used on Bermuda in Alabama? Never heard of green sand. I don't know.
The only green sand I know is what we mix for divot mix with green lung or turf paint.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, Nico. I'm not gonna be a bunch of help on that one. I guess why. I mean, not on the live stream, but why is it green? And I guess what are the advantage of the green sand? Is there like fertilizer in it or something in it that causes that? But without knowing more, it'd be hard to be able to tell you yay or nay. I'm inclined to say no because just the first time I'm ever hearing about anyone using green sand and it having any special properties for Bermuda grass lawns. So I'd say just use regular sand if you're going to be top dressing. All right, Michael Thomason is up next. He says, "Hey, Ron, I have 1,640 square feet. Most products talk about applications per 1,000 square feet. I can get the math of 1,500 square feet. How would I encompass the other 140 square feet? What makes the math work?" Okay, so if that product gives you an application rate of X per 1,000, you would just multiply that in your case by 1.64. Yeah. And that would get you the exact amount for that amount of square footage. So, the per 1,000 times 2 is 2,000 square feet, times 1,000 square feet. In your case, 1,640 square feet, you can multiply by 1.6. and that's going to get you in the ballpark. It's going to be pretty close. Here's the thing: assuming you can spray it that precisely, that will be exactly what you need for that amount of square footage. So,
Yep.
hope that helps, Michael. Okay, cool. Good question. Okay, next up, he says, I'm in Dallas, and I think our soil is clay or at least close. Is it true top dressing with sand turns your soil to glue? No. Mixed results on Google. Manual reel mower is crushing it, by the way. No, your soil will not turn to glue if you, no. I mean, you ever heard of that, Devin? Sand turn to glue?
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard people say that, but I don't think I've ever actually seen that actually happening, especially if you're core aerating and you're incorporating that sand into the profile and then giving the roots channels to grow into. Yeah, I've never heard of that. I would assume there's probably a lot of golf courses in Texas that have clay native soil that still top dress like approaches and fairways, and I bet you they're not worried about their soil turned into glue, would be my guess.
Yeah. So I'd say no, Nick. I mean, a common one is also with this is if you have a clay soil, you use sand on it, it'll turn to concrete. Not really a thing. So so I'm going to say no, it's a myth. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. All right. Next up is Jay Rivera. He says, thanks for your analysis. I've definitely seen wet spider web patches in the morning. I applied 22-3 fertilizer down yesterday. Let's see what happens in the next week or so. Okay.
Nice. I'd be curious to see what happens. I bet you it'll clear up. I bet you give it a week and a half, 2 weeks, and you'll see new growth coming out of those spots. Especially, like I said, if you're seeing mycelium, then that's 100% dollar spot.
Yep. Yep. So there you go, Jay. Sounds like you're on the way to getting your lawn on the mend, which is good. All right, Heli OC says, hey, Ron, the fiber optic crew dug up some of my front yard to install their lines and left some rocks. Should I pick through it and try to get as much as possible before the grass tries to germinate? Yeah. I mean, if there's rocks, yeah. If they dug up the lawn and they remove some big rocks out as part of they were doing that, I would not put the rocks back. I would keep them out and put dirt in personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just would. But here's the benefit to this. I know it was really nasty. You got your lawn dug up for fiber optic, but fiber optic internet's pretty awesome. So
yep,
there is that. I mean, there's progress, right? All right. See, Pim. So another question for you. Another question for Devin in regards to gypsum. Is it worth adding gypsum yearly, especially if I notice have great results with it improving drainage and compaction?
Yeah, I would use it yearly. Like I said, I do on my home yard. We've been using it for the past 2 years on the golf course. That's probably more on that scale is just soil test related because you got to use so much on so many acreage. But for a home lawn, I think it's really beneficial just as a really good soil amendment. And I think a lot of the bags that you buy will have like maintenance rates. There's like curative rates if you're trying to leach sodium or something along those lines, but then there's also just maintenance rates as far as just amending your soil and improving soil structure.
Nice. So there you go, Colin. It's gonna be your jam. It's gonna be your thing to do every year. Some gypsum. All right. Next up is Two Trilla from Manila. He says, "Hey, Ron and Devin, and happy Friday, everyone. Devin, your yard looks amazing. Has any of your neighbors approached you about their lawn as yet?"
No, not yet. I've helped them with their lawns. Luckily for me, they all know what I do, so it makes sense why it looks like that. Everyone is usually like, "Oh, it's awesome to look at," and everyone's like, "Oh, I really just want to take a divot and hit out of your yard." I'm like, "Well, let's not do that." But no, like my neighbor next door, he jokes that he has the rough and I have the fairway, and he was like, "One day I'm gonna lob a shot over there." So no, it's kind of fun. And then we'll do barbecues and stuff and fire pits, and neighbors come over and then they walk around barefoot on it, and they always have a good time on it and play yard games out on it too, which is also one of the most important things. As much maintenance you do as your yard, it's important to actually go out and enjoy it. Even though when we get a bunch of people actually on it, part of my soul dies a little bit, and I'm like,
oh yeah.
But I'm like, that's it. I do so much to it. It's fun for people to go out and actually step on it and hang out on it too. So an important thing to remember.
I agree with that. Like for 4th of July, So we'll sometimes have company over, and like one of them, they're out there playing cornhole. And it was funny. You put cornhole board on a lawn, and it sits out there all day. The day after, you've got this spot
Yep.
where the cornhole board was.
Well, yeah,
One
and I,
person.
I I've got a really terrible spot from that same thing from
Mhm.
cornhole too, where everyone was standing to throw on one side, and that was a year later, and I've tried aerating it by hand. I put soil amendments on it. I put extra fertilizer in it, and like I've got one spot that just like hates life now compared to everything else, and it's right where everyone was standing. But at the end of the day, it's something to work on and something to improve with the yard.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. I mean, so
If
cornhole,
it was
one wheel.
Yep, if it was perfect all the time, that'd be no fun because then you'd have nothing to do out there.
That's right. That's exactly it. At least I tell myself that when I see people out on it, I'm like, man, it was so perfect. Speaking of which, Ron Bowling sent some pictures in of his lawn. He wanted to share with us. Like he says, "Hey, I can't walk out of my yard without getting a compliment. Thanks. I've been following you and your program for years, and it's paying off." So we have another Bermuda grass lawn. And I got to tell you, man, that
Ooh,
color
looks nice.
is, man, spectacular, incredible, very nice work, sir. Looking really good. Got another picture here. The domination line between you and your neighbor. Now, if your neighbor ever asks for help, you definitely got to help him out because you are definitely exerting dominance on that. We got another shot here of his. Man, that would be not fun to mow, but you got it looking good. I got to hand it to you.
The edges look nice too.
Crispy
Detail.
edges, and then finally we got that. Yeah, dude. I got to tell you, Ron. The color looks great, but like plus 10 points, man, for like not being an easy lawn to mow. I mean, you got like a nice fringe going on there, and the edging is good overall. Top marks. Looks really good, man. You should be proud of that. I get it why your neighbors come by and give you compliments. It looks solid. Seeing this makes me want to go pressure wash my sidewalks. Everyone gives me a bunch of groups saying, "Hey, man, your sidewalks need to be pressure washed," and that's what concrete should look like. So that's pretty nice. Could be something for me to do this weekend, maybe this Sunday. Huh. Great work. Okay, next up we have Magic Mike 50. He says, "Hey Ron, I'm in North Georgia as well. I've been always been late with getting pre-emergent down in time to prevent a barrage of POA annua in the spring. What is the best time frame to get pre-emergent down to prevent POA? Fall. So the fall is when you prevent POA annua and other cool season weeds. So what I'll tell you, Magic Mike, I've tried a couple different ways of doing it. What I found produces a really good result. First of all, the product you use matters. So if you're in Georgia, I imagine you have warm season turf grass. Use Spectacle Flow. Like this is the product you want to use. You can use prodiamine. You can use blends of prodiamine with other products, and they work okay. Nothing, at least that I've come across as yet, approaches what Spectacle does. So it's more expensive, but it's totally worth it. The way to use it that I think produces a really good result is in late August, early September, you do an application, and then November, December, you do another application, and that's really gonna, and again, obviously staying within your annual limits. So I will do like 1/10 of an ounce per thousand in each of those apps. So 1/10 of an ounce per thousand in September, another 1/10 of an ounce per thousand in November, December, and then like this year, I mean, no exaggeration, I probably picked 4 or 5 little clumps of POA annua out of my entire lawn, and it was pretty much along where my lawn borders with some of the other neighbors' lawns. So this stuff is incredible for preventing POA annua. It's not cheap, but it's completely worth it because it's nothing really, in my opinion, approaches what it does for POA. But as your question, in the fall is when you want to do it. If you wait till the springtime, you're already behind the 8 ball. You're gonna have some breakthrough. And I guess this is a question for you guys, Devin. So you guys don't have Spectacle. You can't use something like Spectacle.
No.
POA annua on the golf course. How do you guys manage that?
So on the greens we use Poke here, and then pretty much anywhere else there's a product called it's Bayer Progress. We'll use Progress for that, and then just like Barricade is really all you got for cool season
So
grasses. POA is really hard to manage and control in cool season grasses because it is a cool season grass, so it's hard to manage something without killing the grass you want to keep.
I got you. So you guys have used Progress EC is one, a common one. Have you guys played with the velocity at all? I mean, this is a relatively the new Velocity PM is a relatively new. I mean, it's like a new formulation that came to the market like last year before. Have you guys played with this at all?
Yep, we've used Velocity too as well. Yep.
Yeah. So But to your point, I mean, as far as like a pre-emergent, as far as preventing it, prodiamine or some other pre-emergent can help some. But I mean, it's prodiamine, in my opinion, is not great by itself against POA. Like if you're going to do prodiamine for POA in the warm season lawn, you really need to stack it with like simazine and imazaquine, both of which I don't believe you can use on cool season lawns.
Yep.
So
Kind of our key, which it's not herbicides, but to managing POA in cool season grass is growth regulators.
mm,
Um, there's a lot of like Cutlass will suppress and manage POA in cool season turf, and then also paclobutrazol trimmet, which isn't
mhm.
residential use, but also will manage and suppress POA. Essentially, the way it inhibits its growth is more extreme than the other variety that you like more, and it will
Mm-hmm.
outcompete that. And over time, and we're talking that it's years of application to eventually sway that population density one way or the other.
I got you. I got you. So it is truly something unlike us where you can relatively have a warm season lawn clean of POA. In a warm season lawn or a cool season lawn, it's something more that you just manage through cultural practices, through
Yep.
growth regulators.
Yep. And yeah, next time I'm on, I need to get a bunch of pictures because we to see if we were going to keep doing it because the past couple of years we had dinged the greens pretty good coming out of winter because we went
Mm-hmm.
pretty aggressive on POA cure rates. I think we were up to 0.9 ounces per thousand, which is like above the label rate. But the manufacturers and the guys from POA cure were coming out and looking at greens and stuff with us, and we nuked them. And on a couple, we were high where it nuked the bent grass too. And then obviously membership's not thrilled about that. So we had to
Right.
sit down with way upper management and like ownership, and they were like, "Well, what are you guys going to do? We're not doing the 0.9's done." So we went down to this past year. We went to 0.75, and coming out of this winter, we had no adverse effects on the bent grass. A little bit on the POA where it was sunken, but not where it was like completely gone. But it was gone enough where once that bent grass got going, it was able to grow in, and it didn't really affect play too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now, going into this fall, when we do our fall apps, we'll do 0.6, which is the lowest rate for bent grass greens to control POA. And I got to take some pictures because we've been doing that since I got to Flying Horse at 2015 with our director of agronomy, who he just retired. So now Mark, who is at our Super at our North course, is overseeing this stuff. So I'm working on that with him. And I mean, from 2015 till now, we've got greens that were almost 98% POA that maybe are 2% POA now, and almost
Nice.
all bent grass. And having pictures year by year, and you can literally see the transformation over the years of it is pretty cool. So I'll have to compile that stuff, and the next time I'm on, we'll get those up and you can see it. But yeah, controlling POA in cool season grass, it's not a one-time thing. It's a multi-year process to be successful with, and it takes a lot of patience.
I can see that. A lot of patience and hopefully not too many oopsies along the way as you play
Yeah.
with rates to find out what the greens will tolerate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. All right. Golf Junkie says KBG 6 hours north. PGR at 0.2 ounces per thousand. I'm not sure PGR. I'm guessing Trex Pack Ethyl. I'm guessing Primo. Every 2 weeks. Seed heads everywhere. Use a higher rate. Um, I wouldn't. I don't know that I would because here's the thing, Golf Junkie. I'm not sure. So you have KBG 0.2, so 2/10 of an ounce. I'm not sure if that's even enough. But the thing is,
Because yeah, I think what is 0.6 is KBG, so you could be
yeah.
0.3.
So 0.3. Yes, you should be at like 0.3 per thousand. If you're spraying every 2 weeks, 0.3. I can actually show you here because I have the half rates all listed here in a chart. Well, not really a chart on this page. So you can actually look. Go
And I was going
ahead.
to say, while we're on the kind of the topic of this, when you're doing PGRs to suppress the seed heads, it's really really important. As soon as you're greened up and like the grass is just getting going, that's really when you want to get that first one. Because if you wait any longer, however the inner workings of the plant works, it doesn't change it. I guess I guess what would that be? The physiological growth of it isn't changed enough early enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if you start and then you already have seed heads, it's already too late.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, because it's something this year I played with Golf Junkie is normally as far as guidance, and again, now you have Kentucky bluegrass, but for warm season lawns, I tell most folks mid-April to late April, go ahead and start your growth regulator. So pretty much before you are trying to slow down growth, which is what most people think about with growth regulator, but there's tons of other benefits to it other than just you mow less. This season, I tested starting PGR in like mid-March, and I really like the results I got with it. You know, the regulation's been better, more even throughout the year. Seed heads were less this year than they've ever been in years past. So, you know, to echo Devin's point, you know, as soon as the lawn is greened up, it's got its legs. You're starting to mow it. You know, introduce growth regulator and keep it in the plant at the correct rates throughout the season. You really can't lose if you do that.
Yeah, and yeah, same. So like Ron's saying, so I did my first. Well, like I was saying earlier, I did two splits to start the year, just because I didn't want to overdo it, especially on cool season. But my first app was like right at the end of March, and then my second app was like that first week of April, and then I was going full right after that. So it was pretty early. As soon as it was greened up, and I bet you the yard was probably 95% greened up. That's when I started
Mm-hmm.
spraying it.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I mean, as far as seed head suppression, it really does work. Like his pictures that he showed, if I can find it again. I'm not sure if you've been on the entire time, Golf Junkie, but he showed a picture. I think it's, let me see. Nope, not that one. It's not that one. It's this one. Yeah. So you see that square. I mean, you can talk through it, Devin, what I'm looking at here or showing them.
Yep. So yep. So in between the white test plot lines, that received no plant growth regulator. Starting at the very beginning up to today, it hasn't gotten any. And if you look outside of those white marks, you can see there might be a few little seed heads here and there, but nothing as dense as what's inside that plot.
Yeah. So all seed heads relatively clean. So that if you need to know if PGR, in addition to all the benefits you get from it, from you know better colored, less mowing, for seed head suppression, it absolutely should be on the label because it does work. It really does work. I see it in my lawn, and that's about as that's about as good an example. I mean, that's another angle there. You can see kind of really ugly in the middle, and then relatively clean on the outsides of that.
Yep. And yeah, like I said, what's really important is just your initial application timing and when you start doing it. Because if you start too late, it won't matter.
Yep. Yep. Too late. Yep. All right. Corey Binion is up. He says, I have a tree with roots above ground. I want to make a flower bed around it because the Bermuda is weak. How do I kill the Bermuda without harming the tree? Ew. I would say Fusilade. Fusilade 2 is what I would go with because most ornamentals there's a lot of ornamentals that will tolerate Fusilade 2. We're going to want to stay away from glyphosate because that could ding the tree. But Fusilade 2 does really, I mean, that's very effective against Bermuda grass. It is a foliar spray. And if you look at the label for Fusilade 2, like almost half the label is all the ornamentals and trees you can spray the stuff on. So we use it for controlling Bermuda grass, but it really is more of a specialty herbicide that can also be used for controlling weeds in ornamentals as well. So that's what I would lean towards, Corey. Look at Fusilade 2. I can send you a link to it. Read the label, obviously. I'll send it to you. But yeah, I'd probably avoid glyphosate if you want to, minimize the chance of causing any damage to the tree. That's what I would tell you. So take a look at this. You'll see it here in the chat right now. All right. BS Smith 333 says, hey Ron, I went to 1/2 inch on my Zenith, living dangerously. But then I realized I needed to scarify and scalp. Lawn not looking so good, but will recover. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, so the thing is, I'd say B Smith. I mean, 1/2 inch looks nice with as far as a height of cut. But again, I think personally that 3/4 inch height is it's a best of both worlds because you go shorter than that, the lawn's going to thicken up faster. You're going to run into cutting issues sooner. You're going to have to do like verticutting, or in your case, you scarified in the scalp to be able to thin things out. So it's the lower you go with any turf grass, the more work it is. It's just a lot more work. So
Yep.
might maybe try raising it up, maybe 3/4 of an inch. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it will make a difference in the amount of work you have to do. Okay, here we go. Tom B says, hey, Ron and Devin, in a northern lawn, do you reduce the amount of PGR when the growing season turns hot? It's a great question. Expecting highs in the upper 90s this weekend and into next week. I know the growth will slow. What say you?
No, I keep my PGR rates the exact same all the way through. The only thing that would maybe influence that for my home lawn, for the golf course, it'll stay the same too. But we spray in the mornings, so that's fine. Usually, I'll come home on Fridays and I'll spray in the afternoons. And if it's too hot, I'll spray on like Wednesdays because we can only water certain days. So I can water Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Saturday. I guess it would be morning. I start my watering at midnight because I set out cycle soaks. So I would move it to, if it's too hot on Friday, I would move my spray to Wednesday. Whatever the cooler day is, if it's too hot during the day. But as far as rates, I would keep it the exact same. I would just be worried about if your air temperature is too hot,
Potentially causing some damage that way. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as rates, nope, I keep them the same. And I know there's some regulators that say that. I think Cutlass has that in their label where they're like, oh, temperatures extremes, but I've never seen that actually happen.
Nice. All right, Justin King says, Ron, need you to come take a vacation to Oklahoma and bring a leveling rake. If I brought my leveling rake, that would be like the opposite. That's very much the definition of not a vacation. Okay, next up he says, thank you so much for the detailed answer, Devin. I've been getting told lately that gypsum is BS. It doesn't work and doesn't do what it says on the bags, which of course I disagree. Wait a minute, are you telling me, Colin, someone on the internet told you something and it was not true? Who'd have thunk it? All right, next up is, he says, this I agree with. I'll definitely have to throw some down again when I aerate and here pretty soon. I can definitely see why it'd be more beneficial to throw it down at that time. Okay, next the question is, says, Devin, would you say it also helps with disease if you're improving those two things, i.e. compaction and drainage? I've noticed if two things are improved by a product, would be less chance for disease because less standing water, etc., in clay soils especially.
Yeah, I think it would take probably a few years of an application to actually see enough results for that. But I think over time, improving your drainage and your compaction would certainly help with disease. It's not something you would throw down and immediately a few weeks later you'd be like, oh, no disease for me anymore. It would be something that you would see over time if you stuck with it.
Yeah. So it's you are creating conditions. So in other words, a good way of saying it is that gypsum itself is not a replacement for fungicide, but over time it can help create conditions where disease is less likely to be a problem in your lawn. So yes, use gypsum, I guess, if it's working for you. All right. I got the pictures. Helly OC says, sorry, Ron, I went through the email and resent them to your email. So what was the, I mean, actually this is looking, I'm not sure what's going on with this. This is, yeah, I'll show the pictures. I think you're the one that you said you had the damage done to the fiber coming in. So we will show the folks what we're talking about. With your lawn, it's definitely going to be a process. I know where you started out, and it's it's getting better, but it's you're going to be it's just going to take consistency and a while to improve this. So you see, you got an area that's pretty gnarly, pretty dead. Those trees are what I'm concerned about. I think those are going to be a problem for you.
A lot of shade, yeah.
Yep. I really do. I really think those trees are going to be, I know I've said it every time I've looked at these pictures, they're going to be a challenge. And then here, I don't see a tree, so this can likely get better. But this first picture, the trees, man, are going to be tough. They're going to be working against yourself by keeping those. All right, next up is Best Tennis Player says, loving this content. Awesome, man. Love to hear that. Love to hear that.
Here you go, Ron. I'm going to send one just so people can see too. I'm going to send a picture of the course that I took actually this morning. It'll come through
so
here.
I can get it here, and I can. You're emailing it or sending it over Instagram?
Email.
Okay, cool. Yep,
Probably
I'll send it over here. I'll see if it pops in. Cool.
just people might think it's kind of cool to see the actual course too.
All right.
Let's see if it comes through here.
I'll wait for it goes through. And then Louis P says, okay, so same rate per 1,000, extra water equal extra carrier. Got it. Yes. Yes, that's one way of definitely. Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's an accurate statement. I'm still waiting for your email. It'll pop in here in a second. Oh, there we go. So picture of the course. Oh man, dude, I don't know why you even leave. Goodness gracious. All right, so let's get this up so folks can see what you're working with. We're showing folks your office.
The office.
It's showing folks the office. Man. Okay, so this is where he gets to go to work every day. This is pretty cool. Wow. That is absolutely gorgeous. So what is the grass on the course? Is it ryegrass, Kentucky bluegrass? What are you guys using for the fairways?
It's all bluegrass.
All
So
bluegrass.
fairways and rough are all bluegrass. Tees are bluegrass. Rounds are bluegrass, and then the greens are bentgrass.
Gotcha.
Mostly.
Nice. Absolutely gorgeous. Really, really gorgeous. And as far as your mowing, so one of the things I always tell folks, the biggest difference, I had someone call the other day and they were complaining. They said, hey, I pay a lawn care service. My lawn doesn't look great. They say they put out fertilizer, but it still's not looking good. And I want to get a different product that's going to help green my lawn up. And I want it to look absolutely good because every time they mow it, a couple of days later, it looks brown. So the question I asked was, how often are you mowing your grass? To which they replied, every 2 weeks. And I'm like, that your lawn will never look good. I said, I would not. You can buy anything you want that we sell, but I'm gonna tell you, your lawn's never gonna look good if you only mow it once every 2 weeks. So to give folks an example, I always say the difference between a golf course lawn at home, or sorry, a regular typical lawn at home, residential lawn, and a golf course is the mowing frequency. So for you guys,
Yep.
like, what does it take from a mowing schedule to be able to create that?
So good question. Well, it's funny. You can see, I think that's either Jack or Elmo and fairways right there. So fairways are mowed every day. It's a front 9, back 9 schedule. So one day they'll mow the front 9. Next day they'll mow the back 9. So fairways are getting mowed 3 times a week ish if they're quick enough, and depending on what we get for play. And then it's the same for the rough. We have 2 rough mowers, and then it's kind of a front 9, back 9 thing. So rough is getting mowed at a minimum 2 a week. 3 times a week is what I prefer. And then same for like our surrounds. Tee surrounds get mowed once a week because they're kind of their own thing, and they kind of get neglected. Not really in a play zone. And then green surrounds 2 or 3 times a week. Greens are mowed every day. And I think that's it. And then tees are just mowed once a week, but they get such heavy growth regulation that's all they need. Because
Nice.
mowing tees is just a very time consuming thing to do with square tee boxes.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah, because you got to be you can't really overrun to keep the lines and everything nice and crisp. Yeah, I could see that's actually probably I didn't think about that. Huh. All right. So next up we have Cooper. He says, Ron, Bermuda grass, your neighbor from Swanee, Georgia. I have not put any out this season, but now seeing some dollar spot to pop up and form little webs on the grass. Should I don't see anything else from you. So what I would tell you, again, if what you have, the little spider webs, the mycelium, in the early morning, Cooper, for Bermuda grass, in most cases, if you're feeding it enough nitrogen, if it's getting a good nutrient program, it's not going to turn into anything. Like I've had like the little spider webs on my lawn occasionally in the morning, and I don't have any damage or any kind of dollar spot that actually shows up. So if you're feeding it enough, it really shouldn't be a problem. In the event that it is starting to cause some damage to the lawn, you could apply propiconazole as a way to control it. But again, in Bermuda grass, that's typically not necessary. If you've got a good nutrient program, the grass will grow through it. So I would not take the fact that you're seeing the spider webs on the front lawn as a means that you must go out and apply fungicide. So hope that helps. All right. Dan says, Ron, I am new to the lawn gain, new to pre-emergent. What is the best game plan for my Bermuda spectacle flow in the fall and prodiamine in the spring? Yep, I like that. So spectacle flow in the fall, absolutely, and then either prodiamine or dimension in the spring. Um, the benefits of dimension is that, or active ingredient dithiopyr, is that for young crabgrass, dithiopyr has the ability to control young crabgrass, whereas prodiamine does not. Benefits of prodiamine is that it tends to last, I think, it tends to last a little bit longer. So you can use either prodiamine or dithiopyr slash dimension in the spring. Um, but for the fall, spectacle flow is really what you want to use. Like I really wouldn't mess with anything else other than spectacle in the fall. So yep, that would be the plan. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us on the Golf Course Lawn Store. We have those products, and if you look at our how to use section, it has like rates that you'd recommend, or we recommend. If you have any questions, just drop us an email, and we'll do our best to help you out. All right. Colin's up next. He says, I could definitely agree with what Devin said with the morning sun. I realized and noticed the same thing between my back and front lawns. Back lawn is way ahead and better than my front lawns. It's a good point. It's interesting. My back lawn consistently looks better than the front. I mean, the front looks good, but the back lawn is always just like a thing of beauty. And literally, because the sun rises right over the houses, like literally. I'm not sure if I have any video of the back lawn. Actually, I do. This is one from today. So if you the video rises over. Okay, so the house is in the background. The one with the the two houses that are there right now. Right between those two houses is where the sun comes up every day, and the back lawn just absolutely gets tons of sunlight, gets hammered. And as you can see, this video was taken today. It looks pretty good. Not bad for June. Not bad for Bermuda grass for that devil grass that the grass people call a weed. Not bad. So, but yeah, and the front does not look like that. So it's probably something to what you said. Okay, so next up is Andrew Flores. He says, sorry guys, I've been MIA, but here, my backyard is starting to get looking right. That's okay. Nice. Okay, this is a good question. Nick Wren says, are there things you think are superior when applied in liquid form versus granular or vice versa? It's a good question.
That's a really good question.
Mhm.
Well, I guess if I was going to start, oh man, that's a really good question. I guess the first thing I would say is iron. Iron is 1,000 times better in a foliar spray than a
Mhm.
granular, I
Yep.
think, because it's instant to the plant. I know there's like some granular PGRs you can use, and I think that foliar is also better when it comes to that. I think on the other side, I think like some granulars, like there's like some soil amendment stuff, like humics and stuff that you kind of get a bigger percentage in granulars are better for that. It takes more water to get them watered in, obviously.
Mhm.
There's liquids. Yeah, I think that's it. I think probably for like your bulk fertilizer stuff, granular is the way to go there. Because
Yep.
really liquids is just for supplement feeding. You're not going to bulk feed like you would with granular. So I think those both are kind of like their own category. But I would definitely say iron is better as a foliar or a liquid spray than anything granular. And then like I said, then the other side, like any like humic stuff is better. So, not always. I do like liquid stuff, but you usually, if you want to do a bigger app and get more percentage now, and you can usually get that in a granular
Yeah.
versus a
Yeah.
liquid.
So Nick, so I'd say so exactly what Devin said. For anything, if you're looking to build up nutrient levels in the soil, like your phosphorus or potassium levels, I think granular is going to be better than that because the amounts that you can apply and not injure the lawn you tend to be much higher with granular. With your biostimulants, like granular biostimulants, better for improving like the nutrient holding capacity of the soil. What else? I don't know. Fungicides, either way. I mean, I think it's really more of a convenience thing. I think liquids might be
Yeah,
better. I
and
think
I would say too. I do like liquids, but on the same token, kind of it depends what you're treating for.
that's a
If you're
good point.
treating for a
Yep.
soil-borne disease, a granular will work just as good because you got to get that down into the soil and water it in. If it's a foliar disease, a spray is way better than that because you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
water the granular in and wait for the plant to systemically take it up and translocate it up into the foliage where the disease is. If it's a foliar, you can get it right there, and the plant can absorb it through the stomata.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I like it. So like most things in life, Nick, the best answer is it depends.
It depends. Yeah.
It depends. It sounds like a cop out of an answer, but really that's it depends on what you're trying to do. They both have benefits. I will definitely say for micros, growth regulator, I think liquid like foliar sprays are superior.
Yep.
But
I agree. But yeah, that is a really good question.
yeah, I like it. That's a good one. I've never been asked that one before, Nick. So that's a solid one. So a blended program, which is what I personally do and what I recommend to folks. I think produces the best results, assuming you have the time and budget to be able to do it. But yeah, that's good.
Oh, so yeah, Nick. So like Ron just said, a blended program. So I spray. Um, I'll do a spray every week. The sprays are completely different, and then I do a big granular app once a month. So 1 week is like all my foliar stuff. So it's my PGRs, my iron, my micros. Liquid fertilizer goes in that because I'll do a tenth between the two. So each week it's 0.05 pounds. So it's
Mm-hmm.
split. That tenth is split between each one to not overdo it. And then the next week it's like my my Carbon Pro kit. So it's my Miramichi stuff goes in with that. Some humic stuff goes in that. Some BioKelp product that I use that goes in that. Everything that is soil drench. If I'm doing a fungicide, that'll go in with that spray. If I'm doing a wetting agent, that'll go in with that spray. So like Ron just said, it's a blended thing. So I've got my granular stuff, I've got a real foliar stuff, and then I've got like a spray that is more for the soil on the next week. So
Yeah. Yep. So
it just depends, but that's a really good question though. Kind of that's
yeah,
an
that's a good
interesting thing
one.
to think about.
I like it. All right, a Two Gun Master says, I have a larger lawn, 10,000 square feet, tremendous trouble cutting low with my zero turn Bermuda without scalping. Am I going to have to real mow to get 1 to 1.5 inches? Any other options? You should, I mean, I'd say this, you should be able to get, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 1 inch with a zero turn might be asking a bit much. Um, if you can level the lawn, like even out and like you make it relatively smooth and you're not dealing with like any kind of slopes or contours or curves, you might be able to get down to 1.5 inches with a zero turn. But I mean, like an inch and a half is kind of like no man's land because it's on the higher side for a powered reel mower and it's on the low side for a rotary. So I'd say Two Gun Master. If you want to ride on, you might bump it up. You may have to go up to your options are this. You can either top dress and see if you can smooth out the lawn and see if it'll tolerate cutting at 1 to 1.5 inches, or just bump it up to maybe 1 3/4 inch, and then you don't have the scalping anymore because it's better to mow a bit taller and not have scalping than try and get low and have the lawn look ugly because just the lawn's not smooth enough to tolerate that. So,
Just find that sweet spot.
mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Golf Turkey says 5,000 Kentucky bluegrass, 5,000 square feet. After picking up plugs, put down 240 pounds of gypsum. Thoughts regarding PGR? Yes, Primos started in mid-March, including rate. Or, I'm not sure what rate he says. I'm not sure the INC rate. So 240 pounds of gypsum over 5,000 square feet. Seems like
That seems heavy to me
it
because
seems like a lot.
we did 500 pounds an acre
Yeah,
at the
it's like
course.
50 pounds per thousand, almost 450 pounds per thousand. That's a lot. I would think.
Yeah,
Uh,
that seems a bit heavy. Like I only do 10 pounds per thousand when I'm doing my aeration rates on my yard. Um, so I'd say I'd maybe peek at your bag and see what your rates are. It certainly won't do it if you put that much down. I don't think it'll do anything. You just won't. It'll just get to a certain point where it's just a waste, and the soil and the turf will only use as much as it's there, and the rest will kind of go away. And then thoughts regarding PGR Primo, started in March, including rate. Yeah, if you started early, that you're probably good, but without knowing what your rate is, it's tough to tell
mhm.
and what your frequency is.
Yeah. So I guess for you, when you started your first app, because I do the same thing with mine, or this is what I do with mine. I will start. I spray at half rate, so it kind of stays the same. But do you start at a lower rate and slowly ramp up to the rate that you're going to be using every couple of weeks, or how do you
Yeah,
start out your program in the beginning of the season with
yeah,
regulators?
yep. So when I did mine, so my first app, on the Cutlass label, that's what I followed. So I did a half rate on the Cutlass label, and it says if you're mixing with a Class A, which is your primo, to do a
Mm-hmm.
half rate of that. So I did a half rate of that mixed with the half rate of Cutlass. Sprayed that on a Friday. 1 week later, sprayed that again just because I wanted to see how it would do, and then everything looked good after that first week. So I was like, I'm going to spray it again, and then would be 1 week. 1 week would be the full rate. Waited a week and then went into a full regular app right after that.
Nice.
But yeah,
So
same thing, just kind of ramping it down because depending on how it would have looked after that first half, and then I guess it would be a
mm-hmm.
quarter rate. Was just kind of curious to see if it would have looked bad. I probably wouldn't have done a following week. I probably would have done a 2 week interval, but it
Sure.
looked great and everything looked fine. So then I just went that next week, which would be the regular rate, and then everything was good after that.
Nice. Nice. Cool. So hopefully that helps, Golf Junkie. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. Two Gun Master says it's a model is a Toro Titan 48-inch. Willing to buy another zero turn. Someone makes one that cuts low. I don't know, man. Like as far as zero turns, there's a what's the name of that company? It's a yellow mower. It's a yellow color, and people always rave about how good they cut. Is it Hustler? I don't know. I don't have a zero turn, so maybe any of the zero turn folks in here, you guys can comment. Like if you're gonna buy a Mac Daddy zero turn that's not Toro, I kind of hard to believe that Toro would not make the best zero turn because they make pretty much the best everything. But I mean, if there's someone that makes a better zero turn than Toro, maybe weigh in what you guys think he should look at it for cutting lower rather. All right, Darren Proctor's up next. Says, hey Ron and Devin, golf course lawn crew. Thanks for coming out, Devin. Get great info. Hit the like button. Nice. I think Darren sent me a picture of his lawn, and he's like, I think he sent me one not from this week. Also quite nice. We got to get you on here, Darren. We got to show the folks what you're working with. Dude, man, look, color looks incredible, and you guys are doing the work. So, picture one, right? And picture two. I mean, that's just you can't. No, there's nothing wrong with that, man. I don't know. You can't really fault that. It literally, it almost looks fake. It looks like because the way the edging is compared to the rest of like the lawn that's or whatever that is to the right of you, it literally looks like your lawn was dropped on there. It looks like carpet that was laid on.
Yeah.
So picture one, and then the stripes are like great, man, and the edge work is good. You know what? Every time I look at you guys' lawns, you guys make me feel inadequate. I do not spend enough time on my edge work, and you guys are always crispy on these lines, man. I gotta step my game up. All right, let's see here. Dalen Krause says, Demir, do you have a daily schedule of what you get done per day at the course? For example, moving cups, mowing tee boxes, mowing fairways. I help manage a small course in Oklahoma.
Nice. Yep. So we change cups every day. So I'll know that. And it's the schedule is kind of fluid. A lot of this. So I'll get up at 3:45 in the morning. I'll have a cup of coffee, and a lot of that is just thinking of who's going to be in that day, what needs to get mowed, what do I want to get mowed. So it's kind of a fluid working schedule every day. And then of course it depends on who's calls in sick, who's not there. Usually we use H-2B visas, so usually we're pretty reliable. But we got a handful of retired guys who come in and mow with us, and a handful of college kids too who come in. But like raking bunkers, all the bunkers are raked and spinned every day, full raked. And it kind of just depends on the day. Like if it's like they do a clean pick on the range, then we got to mow the driving range because there's no golf balls on it. But then that also kind of factors where our rough mower was the day before and where he's on the course with when tee times are going off. And certain days we have a men's league and a women's league, and they do reverse shotgun. So they'll go 15 through 18, one forward. So we'll actually start maintenance on hole 15 that day. So everything kind of depends. And if like guys are mowing on 10, I know they'll be back onto like those holes before those groups are out of there. So it's kind of just a big fluid moving schedule all the time. And it's kind of just the morning of, and I just kind of I see at the board and I think about it when I'm drinking my coffee in the morning, and then I get to work and line everybody out. And for the most part, it always goes the way it should.
Right. Nice. Okay. we could get your other question is also, is POA Cure the only pre-emergent you use on the greens twice a year, alternate to a different product?
Yep, PoaCure is the only thing we use on our greens.
Okay.
We use it's not a pre-emergent, but we use Quicksilver. I think it's called colfentrazone, I think is the active ingredient in that. I'll probably pronounce that wrong, but we'll use that as kind of like a preventative for moss.
Nice. Cool. All right. So hope that helps, Dalen. Helps you get your program on your course that much better. All right. Brett Curran is up next. He says, I had my yard sodded with Bermuda 3 weeks ago, but it's overrun with nutsedge. Any recommendations? Yes. So for sedge control in a Bermuda lawn, I would go with a herbicide called Certainty. So I can show you really quickly here. If you go to the golf course lawn store, you go to Weed Killer, and the third product is this guy, Certainty. As far as like in my opinion, the Mac Daddy product that for controlling sedges in Bermuda grass or any warm season grass, you really can't beat this. So this is an example of some like does Poa annua as well. It's another benefit of it. But if you look at this is some yellow nut sedge getting hit with Certainty, and then 7 days later you see the results. And then I should have taken another picture like 14 days later because it was like burnt to a crisp. It was like literally like brown dead. You could have kicked it over. Same thing with Poa annua before, and then 10 days later, great control. So as far as a herbicide that you want to definitely have, in my opinion, in your toolkit for Bermuda grass lawn, Certainty is like Celsius for broadleaf control, Certainty for sedges, and then POA control. So I'll send you a link to this if you want, Brett. And with your Bermuda lawn being 3 weeks ago, yeah. So once you start mowing it, you can. If you want to spot spray with this, that'd be fine. Again, Certainty as far as herbicides goes, it's relatively gentle. So as far as it causing any damage to your Bermuda lawn, I wouldn't be too concerned about that as long as you stick to the rates. But yeah, that is absolutely what I would go with. It's what I use on my lawn. I don't use anything else for sedge control for Bermuda other than Certainty. Great product. All right. Next up is Soju for All. He says, Ron, first time leveling. I have bare spots that are taking forever to recover. Wondering if I level with sand, will the spots recover, or should I wait till the spots recover before I level? I guess I'd want to know why they bare. Like, it's always like sand top dressing is not like a magic bullet that's going to make grass grow in places where it wasn't. So I'd want to know when you have the bare spots, why are they bare? Is it something where every year they've always been that way? Or is it something new this season? Are those bare spots have, do they get more shade? Do they not get enough water? Is there some debris possibly under the soil? There's a lot of, in other words, you want to play detective and try and figure out if the rest of the lawn looks really nice and you have this one area that doesn't look good, like what is special about this spot that's causing it to struggle? Because sand is not really going to fix that. Yeah, I'm not sure if anything else you can think of, Devin. Like if you had a bare spot in the lawn.
Yeah, like you just said, I would do some detective work first and kind of see what is causing those bare spots. Irrigation audit would be a good place to start. Run your sprinklers and put cash cans down. See if those spots are even getting watered. See if your heads need to be adjusted. Like Ron said, sometimes there could be something underneath the soil surface that is causing it to not grow very good. So I would kind of start there, and then if everything's good and your water's all good, I would probably seed and then sand.
Yes.
Depending whatever your grass type is.
Who's your grass is? Yeah, if it's Bermuda grass, then no. But if it's something that's like a cool season lawn, then yes. Okay. Next up, we have Two Gun Masters. Does the golf course sell equipment to the public when they want to upgrade? If so, what's the best way or person to approach on a course to find out? So, do you guys sell to the public, or how do you guys do with your equipment?
Good question. We actually just sold 2 of our old rollers. A couple other courses bought them. Usually, our stuff's always on lease, and then after a certain amount of time, Toro, they just take the equipment back, and then they just drop off new equipment for us.
That's pretty sweet. How often is it? Every 5 years, less than that, or is it something?
Usually about every 3 years. And if you want, I'll send you an email. We just got our new rough mower this year. I think it's like $160,000 for our new rough mower. And the thing, it is sweet.
I should hope so.
I'll email you a picture.
I should hope so for $160,000. Wow, there's always levels to it. Always levels. Yes. While I wait for the picture to come in, that's pretty sweet. Uh, Next up is Colony, or he says, thanks, Devin, for all the input and advice on gypsum. Very helpful for sure. I've been using powdered form of gypsum for the past couple of years. They don't really show rates on those. Maybe do a granular one, I'm possibly thinking.
Yep, I would get a granular. And the one you probably can get, it's called it's the Anderson Black Gypsum, DG, and that's a really good one. And it's the gypsum itself is coated with humic acid, and I think it's like a 21% coat on that, so you kind of get a double whammy. I've only used it once because I can get other stuff through work, but the year I did use that, I thought it was a really good product.
Nice. Nice. All right. Next up is Terrence Stamps. He says, good evening. For tall fescue, should I still be mowing low? What is the ideal height for tall fescue?
For tall fescue, I want to say I think it's like 4, 5, 6 inches is the ideal height for tall fescue. Anything else lower than that usually kind of stresses it out a lot. So yeah, I'd say between 5 or 4 and 6 inches is where I would keep tall fescue.
He says, for tall fescue, should I be mowing low? No, I wouldn't. What is the ideal height? 4 to 6 inches. Yeah, if you want to mow low, you got to switch to like Kentucky bluegrass or ryegrass. Yeah, between those two. Tall fescue is kind of like in the name. It's good for roughs and also for people that want that long, like I guess shag carpet look in their lawn. Tall fescue is not bad. Like we actually have it here in Georgia. Like in the neighborhood that I live in, some of the more shaded areas, some of the cooler spots they have tall fescue. And now it's starting to struggle a little bit because it's getting hotter. But but like March through like May, it looks better than Bermuda. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It's really good. I mean, granted, it's too tall for my taste, but I mean, as far as like a grass, it looks good looking. It's pretty grass.
Yeah, fescue is if it's maintained well, it can look really, really nice.
All right, John Williams says, hey, y'all grass people. We got a picture from Devin of the mower. Man, this thing. Okay, let's see. So 100, what is it? What is 100? You said 120? 100, a whole lot.
Like 160.
What does a $160,000 lawnmower look like? And this is just for the roughs? Goodness.
Yep.
Oh, that's just... people always ask you, if you get a bunch of money, like what would you spend your money on? Oh man, this is pretty sweet. Okay, so take a look, guys. In all, it's good. It's so big it can't even fit in the picture. The Groundsmaster 4500D. So you got this is a cutting head, a big cutting head underneath it, and you have two that fold out. It looks like.
Yep. So 3 decks on the front and then 2 decks on the bottom.
Wow.
Or on the back, and then 2.5 inches is what we have that set at. Nice.
That is sweet. That is a cool toy to play with. I mean, that's
and then nice. That's it. So that was the day it came, and then kind of a glimpse. That's just like in our mechanics bay. She was checking over and make sure all the fluid levels and everything were good before we sent it out, and make sure the heights were fine.
Nice. Very, very cool. One question we often get. Okay, so on the course, growth regulator, you guys often use Primo Max. A lot of folks will ask me the difference. They say, why? So you have Primo Max. You also have, say, something like Podium, which is another product that Syngenta makes. This is a generic version of Primo.
Yep.
Why on the course do you guys use Primo instead of Podium?
So yeah, that's a good question. So Primo Max is like Syngenta's backed by. So if you get a batch of Primo Max and you apply it at the label rates and you follow everything that the label says, and something goes wrong and you have adverse problems with your turf, you can let them know that, and they'll come out and they'll probably send their regional agronomist or whoever from Syngenta will come out and look at stuff, and they'll confirm that. And if they confirm that it's something wrong with the batch of Primo, any like turf replacement, usually Syngenta will do that. Podium, even though it's done by Syngenta, doesn't have that backing, so that's why it's cheaper.
Right. So some of what you're paying for is just the what I've been told is that the Trex like what's that?
It's just the peace of mind.
Yeah, peace of mind. Yeah, I've heard the carriers. What I've been told is that the carriers that are in Primo are more tightly controlled than what are in in the generic. But I mean, it's who I guess you'd have to have a chemist to like take them both apart and be able to see what the
Yeah.
differences are. But
Yeah, because
yeah.
the carriers for them are like emulsified concentrates, and you can get kind of like loose with how that chemical structures are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Jay Rose up next. A couple quick questions, maybe in common with a golf course. One, any suggestions or things to do when tilling, leveling a lawn with a culvert with a real mower, being good with the changes? Mm. Okay. And then once or twice a year, I get heavy rain that keeps water for about an hour, then it's gone. Is that a concern for sod zoysia, for fungus otherwise, or is an hour and the water gone fast enough and good to go? Uh, yeah. So here's what I would say. On my lawn, if I get like a ton of rain, no matter how much rain we get on my Bermuda lawn, if it rains in the morning, by the afternoon, the lawn is pretty much dry enough that if I wanted to mow it, I could. So it drains pretty quickly. If you're getting standing water on the zoysia and within an hour it's gone, that's probably okay too. That wouldn't be bad.
Pretty close.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, it shouldn't be an issue, Jay. The thing that I would say that's going to also weigh into you having disease issues with zoysia is if you can maintain it a bit shorter so it dries out easier. That in my opinion is going to also help um, reduce the chance of you having disease problems in the lawn. People one thing that people like about the zoysia is low maintenance, and you can let it grow tall. You can almost like never mow it if you want to. There's actually some like content you can find of people just not mowing zoysia, and it actually looks nice when it's done that way. Um, but you are also more likely to have disease issues. Like zoysia is a great grass; it's relatively low maintenance, but it does not tolerate like being saturated, like having a ton of water, because it gets so thick that it just doesn't dry out that well if you allow that to
Yeah.
happen. So shorter is better in my opinion for it if you have the time and the equipment to do it. Okay. Next up we have Cowboy Wolf says stand-ons are probably as good as they get. I'm not sure. So I guess it's some kind of equipment he's talking about. And then Matt Jackson says, "Hey Ron, I sent you a video of me cutting my zoysia. I don't have anything from you, Matt. So if it was a video, it probably didn't come through because it was too big. You may have to like uh, upload it to YouTube and send me the link to it, and then for next week I can probably get it on the show so folks can take a look at it." Okay, we're winding down, guys. Next up, we have Colin again. He says, "Devin, what would you say is the biggest challenge you face on the course? Something you're always trying to address, no matter what the case is. Someone you might understand from an outside view. So, what's the toughest thing to deal with being a golf course superintendent?"
Oh, that's a good question. I guess growing the grass is the easy part. Probably staffing is probably the toughest part. Like I said, even though we use the visa program, we still have to hire other outside help. So staffing, using the green card program, we do that as well. But yeah, probably just staffing, having enough people to do what needs to get done at a high level every day is probably the most stressful part of it. Um, Living in a semi-arid, dry desert gets pretty stressful. We've been lucky this year. We probably have had maybe 5 or 6 inches of rain, which is more than we had all of last year. But now
Nice.
we're in a hot stretch. We're in the 90s for the next 4 or 5 days, so it's going to be pretty warm. Um, and then with an older irrigation system, of course, it only does it when it's warm. This week, we've been having communication issues from our big computer in the office that talks to all the satellites. So if we can't get that to talk, then we can't get the water to go to those satellites to run for that night. So that makes it a little stressful. So we got people coming from Toro on Monday to help troubleshoot some of that stuff because we probably have noise somewhere in the field somewhere that's causing this intermittent communication failure, which is always stressful. But yeah, growing the grass is the easy part. It's just a bunch of external factors that is always the stressful part of it. Growing the grass is the easy and the fun part, but it's always stuff that it doesn't have to do with the growing the grass that
People,
is the most stressful part.
people,
Yeah.
equipment. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see
yeah.
that.
Equipment breaking down. Like this week, the new rough mower we had because it's a new Tier 4 diesel engine. that came from Toro. It had an issue with the regen on it, where it goes into a regen process to burn off the fuel or the soot or whatever in the engine compartment, and then it somehow malfunctioned, and then we couldn't get it to run. So Toro had to come down this week with a service guy to get it fixed, and luckily he got that fixed. So we were down a rough mower for a day, and this time of year everything's growing fast, and then we finally get stuff cut, and we're kind of behind, and then you get mounds of clippings, and you can't have clippings. So then guys spend the entire day blowing clippings, which is just an incredible waste of time when we could be edging bunkers, adding sand to bunkers for the proper depth, getting everything else mowed. So it's always just a bunch of logistics. So it's growing the grass is the easy part. It's always the logistics on the side that the stressful part. So kind of a little mini glimpse there.
Gotcha. All right. Last couple of questions. So Louis says, I have bare spots from removing Dallas grass. Should I use mix or just sand? It depends on the kind of grass you have. If it is a warm season grass like Bermuda, I would either plug or sod the area. If it's cool season grass, like Devin said, you can use grass seed to fill it in. That's yep. What I'll tell you. Okay, next up is B.S. Smith says, how does Toro get rid of old lease equipment that's off the golf course?
That's a good question. You probably look up a distributor for Toro. Mm-hmm. They probably sell them secondhand through their shops. Yep. Would be my guess.
Yep, Jerry Pate does that. That's a good question, B. Smith. So, Jerry, I know of one, Jerry Pate Equipment Company, Jerry Pate Company, which is they're like south of Atlanta. They will get equipment off lease that then you can go and buy, which is kind of cool because you get a piece of equipment, a mower that it's definitely been gone through. If it needs any parts, they replace those parts. It's sharpened, it's maintained, it's good to go when you get it. And all the parts are going to be used on it are obviously genuine Toro parts because they're a Toro dealer. So
nice.
They actually, I know that the answer to that they do sell them. All right. Next up is Devin. What part of the country do you live in, and what kind of grass do you have? We know you have pictures for us.
Yep. So, Colorado and all cool season bluegrass.
Colorado. All right. And then last couple of questions here. Well, he says, Ron, if you mowed in the opposite direction that you normally mowed, going against the dark stripes, does your mower float and hard to keep straight? My Tahoma is really thick and having trouble with floating. I don't do that, so I don't know. I'd say if your mower's having trouble with floating, this time of year, if you have not verticut your lawn or done something to thin it out, because we're about to be in July, that's something that you're going to want to do. Because if you start out the season after a scalp, Bermuda just gets so thick from like real mowing and feeding it that you have to do something to thin it out, or otherwise you're going to start having like what you're experiencing, like scalping, cutting issues if you don't do that. So that's what I would point you towards. And then next up is our last question of the evening is Two Gun Masters. Devin, do you feel like you're less motivated to work on your personal yard since you deal with it every day for a living?
Nope. I come home and I'll probably spend an hour and a half, 2 hours working on the yard before I come inside. So
yep,
day just kind of continues when I get home, taking care of that. So it's fun. I when I go to work, I haven't worked a day in my life yet. So it's a great job to have and a real fun thing to do. So when I come home, it's just kind of more fun and stuff to do. And working on the yard at home, I actually really enjoy doing because I don't get to do any of the fun stuff at work, like mowing. I never get to mow because I have to do a bunch of other things, and I just get to watch everyone mow and make sure they're doing it correctly. So all the stuff I get to do at my yard at home is stuff I used to get to do way back when. That is like the fun part of it. So it's kind of a stress relief to get home and just get to do the simple stuff that I don't get to do while I'm at the golf course.
Nice. I get it. Yeah. Mowing is relaxing. Like all the other stuff I don't enjoy doing. I like working on shrubs. I don't like really edging, but I like mowing my grass. So
yep.
I get it. All right. Last question to comment. He says, Gary Keller Jr. says, I told my wife about the steel combi you have, but I didn't tell her how much it was. Let's just say we both went and I did check it out and I didn't come home with it. Well, just tell her buy once, cry once. You know, it's one of these things that you buy, you're not going to have to replace it really ever if you take care of it. Like mine is, I don't know, I got mine in 2018 is when I made a video about it, and it's still going strong. So there is that. All right, guys. Well, on that bombshell, we'll cue the outro music. Devin, thank you so much, man, for taking time out of your Friday night to come hang out with us. Obviously you're welcome on anytime you want. And if you got some plans for next time, that you want to share, feel free to get pictures of this when you have time to get on the show, because I think folks really like it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me tonight. It was a good time.
Awesome, guys. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us at the Golf Course Lawn Store. We've got a wide assortment of fertilizers, herbicides, biostimulants in stock and ready to ship to you to help you get a lawn your neighbors are absolutely going to envy. Thank you guys for taking so much of your some time out of your Friday night to come hang out with us, and we will see you guys same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, take care.
Nice. See you guys.